Paul's letter to the church at Rome. We have subtitled this, Living Without Christ. Few interesting things about this church and this letter that was written to them. First of all is that Rome was one of the few churches that was started without the help of an apostle. There's probably other churches like that, but none in such a major city like Rome. What had happened, of course, is that some Jewish people from Rome went to Jerusalem for Passover and Pentecost. During that time, the Spirit of God came and many Jewish people from around the world accepted Christ, including those from Rome. They stayed, along with the others, to get more teaching from the apostles, but when persecution came, they went home and started the church. And like most churches at that time, in the process of time, Gentiles joined in with them. First of all, Gentiles that had been following Jewish ways, and then finally others. The interesting thing, though, is there came a time when the Caesar evicted all of the Jews from Rome, including Christian Jews. They were gone for several years, and then in time were allowed back at the death of that particular Caesar. When they came back, they found a different type of church. It had been totally Gentile for all those years. Remember, they didn't have the New Testament. What they had was the Old Testament and the teaching of these Jewish people who had been at Pentecost. Now the church was totally Gentile, which started, shall we say in the nice way, a discussion about Jewish law and faith in Christ. Well, Paul hears about this. He's in Corinth. He's there for the winter. And then he hears that there's a Christian woman in a nearby town that after the winter months are up, she's going to travel to Rome. They didn't have a post office back in those days, and getting letters back and forth was a trick. So here was a perfect opportunity. This lady was going to go to Rome so she could take a letter from Paul to the church that's there. So he sits down and he lays out, thinking about this issue. The main issue is Jewish law versus total faith in Christ. And he lays this out. This is also his opportunity to give his teaching as the apostle to the Gentiles. He wasn't 100% sure he was going to make it to Rome. God at this point had not told him that he was for sure going there. God would tell him that later. But at this point, he didn't have that assurance. This is a way to get his teaching there as well. As Paul deals with this issue, he has a large section which deals with Abraham. And he's saying that Abraham started following God 14 years before he was circumcised, which was the main sign of Jewish law. 14 years he walked with God. He had the promises of God. He had faith in God. God was working in his life, and he wasn't yet circumcised. In our series about Abraham, we deal with this issue in different ways. There are several times, and we point this out when we have our insights, how he violated Jewish law. For instance, when the 3 visitors came and Abraham fed them a meal, they tell us what the meal was about, and that meal was not according to Jewish law. He was mixing beef with milk products against Jewish law. And that's exactly the point that Paul was making here. It's possible to have faith in God and to walk with God without following Jewish law. There's a purpose for Jewish law. It has nothing to do with walking with God and having fellowship with Him. Well, come back when we give you more insights on the rest of the book of Romans.